Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today I'm joined by Maud Kelley, who is with Greenlands Farm. She grew up in the 80s on a 2-acre homestead farm. Her parents developed and designed and developed Greenlands Farm in 2004. They began to share their roots with the community in 2010 when Greenlands Farm became an agritourism farm. As their 3-generational family grew and aged, Greenlands Farm has gone through changes since 2010. They are now an events venue, breeders of rare poultry, organic farmers of seasonal fruits and vegetables, and offer educational programs. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So talk to us about growing up on, it sounds like you grew up on a homestead. And so talk to us about that experience.
Well, I'll start and say I had no other friends that had the same lifestyle as we did. So it was very different. I think a lot of kids thought I was I was a strange kid. I was very shy. But I had my whole classroom, I think in 4th or 5th grade, to do a kind of a morning on our farm and learn about vegetables and animals. And then I quickly became a very cool kid. So
okay.
It was, I think there was not as many people homesteading back then. My parents did it out of necessity. Of course, as a kid, you're not aware of your financial standings normally, but we were, my parents were trying to get out of debt. So they just reduced a lot of expenses and started growing and producing our own food and living off of our little 2 acres. That felt like about 10 acres when I was a kid. I still can't believe it was only 2 acres, but they did a lot in 2 acres.
Yeah, I grew up, until I was 12 and 3/4 of an acre in suburbia. And thinking back, I mean, that felt huge. And now when I drove by 5 years ago, and the thing's a postage stamp. So yeah. So, all right. So then you became the cool kid. Now at that age, were you, involved
I don't know,
in it?
Cool kid, but yeah.
Cooler, I guess.
Never cool.
So were you involved at all in any of the enterprises on the farm, the projects at all, or at that young age?
I did. I raised my own rabbits and sold them, and my parents let me save the money from it. So I learned entrepreneurship from I think it must have been 4th grade. So it was very young to have learned, how to care for something. They helped me, of course, with meeting people because it wasn't, they didn't quite go that far with it. But, it was a learning experience to take pride in something that you were doing and see the fruits of it. And then we were allowed to pick the baby goats whenever they were born. We would pick our favorites to keep, and then my sister and I would sell them. So, we learned very early how to make it not only for us, but also living as a family.
Now, as you grew up, when you were going to did you go to college, and did you specialize in anything there related to farming?
No, I did not.
Okay.
We got out of my parents' business grew. They were landscape architects and did design, build, and installation for landscaping. And I also grew up doing that. I ran a crew from when I was 15 and on until I was in my early 20s. And so I went to school. I studied music started violin when I was 7.
Okay.
And music was always a big part of our family. And so I went to school for music, and I have a degree in viola performance.
Oh, very cool.
And then I fell in love again with plants. And so I went to school for a second bachelor's degree in landscape architecture.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. And then that eventually brought you back to the farm.
Yeah. Honestly, what happened was a great recession
Mm,
that we all lost our jobs as landscape architects. So we were kind of forced to make something of the farm. My parents were kind of, everybody I think thought that the recession was going to end. And so they kept paying people and, kept trying to carry the company along until there was just not really any way to continue. So they
yeah.
shut the farm, and then we moved here from the Charlotte area to help them save the farm. Honestly, like they were about to lose all of it just because of the recession.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
so you've got the couple different aspects or enterprises on the farm. What was kind of the first thing that you started? Was it the rare poultry, or was it the event space? What kind of started off?
We started making goat's milk soap. That was the
Okay.
start of everything. My parents had goats, and mom always wanted to make soap, and I love doing essential oil blends. So we started making products that soap and lotions and a few other things. My mom used to be a professional baker in the early 80s. So we started baking again, and then kind of bloomed into a full-on farm store. So
Okay.
we sold, we ran that until 2017. So it just kind of grew from there. We started adding, there wasn't a whole lot in Brunswick County. I don't know how many listeners you'll have that are familiar with Brunswick County, but it is a rural, it's a very large county with not a very high population. And it's growing quite a bit. It's one of the fastest growing counties. But there wasn't a lot of educational experiences back in 2012. So we brought that to the area to kind of get our community out and do some hands-on experiences and just share our lifestyle and hopefully have people make a connection again to, what our world and agriculture can offer us.
And Brunswick County, is that on the coast below Wilmington?
It's below. It is below. Sorry, I had to picture a map.
Yeah.
I lived in Wilmington mostly. I grew up in Wilmington, so like Brunswick County it's funny they live here because or they moved here because it was the place you just never went.
Interesting. And it's so close to North Myrtle Beach and Myrtle Beach. You think that
it is.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So then the farm store ran that till 2017. Let's talk about the events aspect there, because I'm looking at your website here. You've got a lot of info there about the events. You got an event barn. You have a beautiful pine grove where you do the weddings and that sort of thing. How did that start?
Well, we were doing community events from the beginning, and most of the operations, we did have help now and then, and I've always had wonderful volunteers. But the core of everything was run by three of us, and it got to be very overwhelming and too much for all of us. So after 2017, we kind of took a little bit of a breath and then sat down and looked at what we enjoyed doing and what would, not to sound lazy, because if anybody knows me, they know we are not lazy people, but what was easy for us, like manageable, and in that sense, not what was easy as a lazy perspective, but what we could do with, as a family and still have time to have some enjoyment in life. So we focused on weddings and smaller events instead of 1,200 people out here for one event. So it just, COVID allowed us to do a lot of updates to the farm. We had plenty of time to do things.
Yeah.
Because nobody was doing weddings. So we took that time and put our last efforts into this new form of Greenlands Farm.
Gotcha. And so is the wedding barn, is that really very recent or?
No, so that's our magically transformed space.
Okay.
from a landscape architecture firm to a farm store and now to an events venue.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's talk about, let's say like thinking like someone who has a farm, they're like, okay, I think I could do a wedding venue or something here. What are some things they need to think through before they decide to go down that road?
Well, one of the things I started telling our guests that come to look at the farm is, like I said, our whole platform that we have here now is solely based around us and what we can do. And I think that when we started this process in 2012, when I was added in, it's actually started in 2010, but when we moved in 2012, we just kind of did too much. And understanding what you're capable of, and sometimes you have to do what we did, which was do too much and realize it's too much, and then pull things back. But going into something with a little more realistic goals of what one person can do, and not one person being 20 people. So that was that was a big thing for us with our new journey as Greenlands Farm, was making sure that we could handle what we were doing, because we care, and I'd rather do 12 weddings a year instead of 100, because I'd rather put all my effort into 12 people and do it very good, instead of stretch myself thin over 100 people. So, and obviously you have to make sure that ends meet. There is that too. We're also unique in that we still now, again, it's just my mom and I, but we started doing landscape architecture again as the economy turned around. And same thing, we only take on as many projects as doesn't cause stress, but we do have another source of income. So I know that we're unique in that way, probably, where we have technically 2 jobs, but
Yeah. All right. So then how many events do you typically do a year?
Well, that's hard to tell because of COVID.
Yeah. So you're still seeing a decrease because of that.
Yeah. I mean, this week I have 4 brides that are coming. That's the first to look at the farm. Like I've never had that many come in one week. So it's slowly, picking up. So, like I said, this being solely doing weddings and small events is new for us. But before that, when we were running, our other programs, we probably did, probably 5 or 6 events a month. So we were doing workshops, and we may get back to some of those things. We really love people, and we love sharing our knowledge. So it's hard to let go of some of these things. And, we still talk about like, well, maybe we could, fit this one thing in. And so we're still taking it kind of slow getting back into it. So we may do workshops again, but and classes. It's just, like I said, we're trying to be smarter about it this time.
Yeah. So the obviously it sounds like the weddings are where the money is in events, or is it the corporate or?
Yeah, I think our biggest income will be weddings.
Okay.
The jury's still out because we haven't had many. But,
yeah.
If we are blessed enough to get 12 to 20, 20 would be my maximum. I don't know if I could handle more than that, but then I think, will help, put some money back into the farm, and hopefully maybe we've never been paid.
Yeah.
So maybe for once I can take them some money. I don't know. We'll see.
Now let's move and talk about the breeding of rare chickens. Talk to us a little bit about that. Kind of how did that get started?
Well, after, so long story short, my parents, my dad built everything on the property, including the farmhouse. And it's a very large house. And we were looking at finally, we lived together for 7 years, which is a little strange, but
yeah.
It kept our farm going. And then when we realized we could finally separate and afford to be two different households, my husband and I and our two kids were going to move down to our other farm. It's about, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile away, into a little, it's about 1,200 square foot, which we renovated to be a cottage. And then my parents decided to give us an early inheritance, and trade for helping them doing the renovations. So, and I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just
I
asking.
get down past because it's hard to answer. Our lives have been so
Yeah,
different and strange at some points that it's hard to answer one question without leading a little bit of a backstory. So what was
yeah.
your
Well,
initial?
the
The
different,
birds.
yeah, the chickens.
Yeah.
You guys do
Okay.
peacocks. You
So
have ducks.
yeah. So we inherited this,
Okay.
for the most part, and it wasn't planned. And so as a family, I went to the kids and said, what would you like to do as farmers?
Yeah.
So my daughter loves birds. And so we started picking what our favorite birds were, and then decided to be very diverse. So we have peacocks and guineas, rare breed of ducks, quail, and then chickens.
Okay.
Oh, and turkeys. Sorry, I forgot about the turkeys too.
Now you sell, is it mostly hatching eggs, or do you also sell day-old chicks? How does that all work?
I do a lot of shipping as hatching eggs around the United States. I don't hatch as many chicks, mostly because of the area I live in. You know, I don't
Okay.
have, and our chickens and breeds are more expensive. So, you know, I try to, and I don't want to hang on to all of them. I only have so much room.
Yeah.
So I do mostly hatching eggs, but I do hatch. A lot of times I'll hatch for customers. So they'll pre-purchase them and I'll hatch out for them.
Gotcha. That's a good way to do it. Now with the, you have to keep all the flocks very separate though, so you maintain the correct bloodlines, right?
Yes. And what we do, so they all have separate coops,
Okay.
but we free range a different coop. And sometimes I let the ducks out and the chickens out because, you know, they're not each other that way. So, so every day somebody gets to come out.
Gotcha. All right. That makes sense. Hey, thriving farmers, where are you on your thriving farmer journey? So if you go to our website, growingfarmers.com, you can click on the assessment button, and that will take you to a form, ask you a few different questions, and that will help you figure out where you are on the 5-stage thriving farmer journey. And what that does then is kicks you a customized PDF that gives you resources to know exactly what to focus on next in your business to go to the next level. So go to growingfarmers.com and click on the assessment. I actually used to have peacocks when I was young, and we unsuccessfully tried to raise them. How do you guys do with them? Is it mainly for the hatching eggs? Because what we found is hatching peacocks without the peacocks is very challenging. Like the take rate in the incubator is very low.
It is. I have a very nice incubator.
Okay.
So that really helps a lot. What you're incubating with.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people's fails are just because of the incubator they're using. But we do, you know, I call it my cruise ship. It monitors temperature and humidity for me. I don't have to do anything. So it's a great, I have a Brincy, and it does really nice for hatching. But yeah, they are harder to hatch. They're harder to hatch. The guinea fowl, the breed that we have, can be harder to hatch. Everybody else is pretty easy, I think.
Yeah. Now I was looking at the prices for that, and you know, obviously people they're selling eggs, and like around here the eggs go for like $2.50 a dozen, but they're obviously just eating eggs. Hatching eggs are many multiples of that in some cases.
Yes.
And it all comes back to obviously like the strain you have and how clean your lines are, correct?
Yeah. So, you know, I try to keep really good records of, you know, where I get our bloodlines from, and make sure it's diverse. And then I try to work out any, you know, things that aren't as like the duck. the ducks, sometimes the hens have a little bit of white where it shouldn't be, or the males do. So I make sure that they go as pet quality when I sell them, and they don't get used as breeders.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you shipping those through the mail, is there anything special you have to do? Do you do them like overnight or?
That's up to the customer. I don't think anybody does overnight anymore. Nobody wants to take responsibility for late packages anymore. I always suggest express shipping, but some people don't do that. But no, I went through, part of what we used to do was packaging for shipping products from the store. And I went through a course on how to package properly. So I just kind of applied that to how I package hatching eggs. And man, I'll be honest, I rarely get, I've shipped for 2 years now, I think. And I think I've had one cracked egg, maybe.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
But they do get jostled around. So I may not get any cracked eggs, but, it's once they get thrown around from the postal service, then that really reduces your hatching rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So your family's involved in the operation. Talk to us a little bit about, how does that work? Do you have very specific roles for different people, or do you kind of just all work together?
I kind of wish we all worked together because sometimes I'm outside just doing things all by myself, but no, it's kind of broken up to everybody's talents and skills. So I do interests. It's a big thing too. So my dad has absolutely no interest in birds, and neither does my mother.
Okay.
And I can't blame them. It's a lot of work. So my dad does all the vegetable farming. He went to MSU for horticulture, so he has a great background in that. I'm supposed to have been training with him for the past 3 years, but I've been so busy I haven't had time. So maybe next year. I do all the fruits. I love, I'm a very hands-off person when it comes to plants, even though I'm a landscape architect. I'm one of the people that puts 0 for the amount of maintenance they want in a yard.
Gotcha.
Because I don't have time.
Yep.
So like fruits are pretty easy. Like there's not a whole lot that you have to do every day. I go out and trim and stuff, but and then my mom's, she's always had a talent for canning and preserving, and so she does all that for the farm. And then the kids, now that they're getting a little bit older, Jules, my daughter, is almost 11, and Rhett, my son, is 8, and they've moved to taking care of almost all the animals, just feeding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And letting birds out and locking birds up at night. But my daughter feeds our horse and the goats, and it's very responsible. So it's
does the day-to-day care.
Yeah. I do
absolutely.
I do all the unfun stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about that, like the business side of things. Who are you, the one that takes care of like the business books and all of that, or?
We actually have an accountant, thankfully.
Okay.
Because I don't think any of us have time. We're still very busy.
Yeah.
Even though we have pulled back operations considerably, we're extremely busy people.
Yeah.
So it's, but as far as like marketing, I used to do graphic design work in Charlotte. So I do everything's done in-house. All the websites are done in-house, the logos.
Gotcha.
Pretty much draw it on a computer. That's probably me, or write it. I do all the writing too.
Yes.
But I do not have an English background, but I've learned over the years how to hopefully get better with my writing.
Absolutely. Okay. And then, so let's talk a little bit about the marketing. How do you market? So obviously each of your enterprises though is very different. It's not like, a value ladder where the people that come to the event then want hatching eggs.
Yeah.
So they're very different.
Yeah. So, I'm not a huge Facebook fan, but Facebook does wonders for the hatching eggs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of communities online that are interested. So I do a lot of marketing. My phone is full of bird pictures. People
Okay.
crazy bird lady, but there's like thousands of bird pictures.
Yeah.
So I just go out, take pictures, and put them up, and talk about the breed. And then for our events venue, that's more things like Google ads. And we have some event sites that we're part of for that. And then the farming produce and eggs that we sell, that is mostly email marketing and some Facebook too, and Instagram. I always put it up there. I honestly don't know how many people I get here for that.
Yeah.
With those two social media platforms, but we've tried to build up a good email marketing list.
Yeah,
so
that's so important. What would you say your favorite breed of birds that you raise is?
That's a hard one. I'd say probably the ducks.
Okay.
They're Indian runner ducks. So
Yeah.
If you've never seen what they look like, they're hilarious.
They're like bowling pins.
They're just quirky, and like they make me laugh. So my favorite of anything is anything that brings me entertainment.
Yeah.
And the peafowl, honestly, like they're pretty funny little birds. Like I'm quite entertained by them. The guineas are cool, except they can be very annoying.
They're very noisy. Yes.
They're pretty funny too. And the quail are very sweet. I always heard they were dumb, and maybe they are dumb, but they're dumb and sweet, which I like. So they come and sit on my feet, and,
now quail, people normally raise those in like completely enclosed because they'll fly off? Yes.
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
If I free range them, there goes all my money.
Gotcha. Yeah. They just disappear.
No, they're like little snacks for everybody. No, they're in a closure, and they're have the 1/2-inch mesh. Yeah. And we also have, my biggest asset for our birds is our livestock guardian dog. So not a whole lot gets past him. So we don't have many casualties around here from predators.
And what breed is he?
I actually have two. The one that guards the birds is an Anatolian Shepherd.
Yep.
And then the one that guards birds, he does a lot of stuff. Goats, the pony, pigs. He's got the funny farm. He is a Great Pyrenees.
Okay. And do you have a particular like one breed over the other now that you have both of them?
Well, I'll say the Anatolian is probably smarter, but more annoying.
Okay. And when you say annoying, just more like
it's just hard.
Or...
They're just a hard breed to train. I mean, he's just they're very hard-headed. So it was, but he is like absolutely amazing. Like out of the two of them, he is hands down and the most amazing dog I've ever trained. Like he's on top of it, and he doesn't mess around. Yeah. The Great Pyrenees, he's just very laid back. He's extremely sweet. Like he comes up like a cat and like snuggles with you. Who doesn't like that,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now tell me a little bit about your Helpers of Our Farm, the HOOF program you have.
Yeah, so that was the beginnings of our educational outreach for the community. That's how that started. And it was with Greenlands, and we always kind of ran that portion like a nonprofit, but it wasn't. And then in 2016, I went through and created a nonprofit for it so that it was its own entity. And we take in, well, I say, but we don't really take in that many anymore because we're at capacity, but and we pretty much keep everybody that we take in, but it's for animals that are rescued, rehomed, or adopted. And then some of them are donated. And some come from great homes, like really good homes. And then others have not. They've, had some pretty rough paths that they've gone down before they came to us.
And then you just raise those typically more as like as a sanctuary.
Yeah, and we use them to teach. So that's our
Gotcha.
teaching platform. So anything educational is done through Helpers of Our Farm or HOOF. So it's the platform we use for our tours. We do some therapy sessions. We do including cow cuddling. And we do yoga on the farm. I go out and teach at schools.
Now we've been thinking of doing yoga. Talk to me through how you had that set up.
Well, we used to have a petting farm every Saturday.
Okay.
Which we don't anymore, but it's a really big space and it's closed in, as far as fenced in. And it turns out to be a great place to do yoga.
Okay.
So it's a nice little space. And my parents raised goats before that were all like, 200 pounds. So we could never do goat yoga. And then after they got out of the goat business, I restarted up with Nigerian dwarfs. So they're perfect for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you like that breed.
Yeah.
All right.
Their
So
outstanding too. I don't know if you've had their milk, but it's
actually
the best goat's milk I've ever had.
I did not know that. When we had the Nubians and we had La Mancha, I think a few La Manchas at one point, but yeah, the Nubians was the main one. But yeah, I did not know the Nigerian dwarfs had the best milk. Interesting.
Yeah. Very good.
Very cool. All right. So where can people find out more about you and the work you're doing?
Our webpage, we do try to keep our social media somewhat up. Like I said, whatever you see posted is me.
Yeah.
It depends how busy I am. So we have one for Greenlands Farm, which is, I think it's at Greenlands Farm. And then I have one for the birds on Facebook, and I feel like it's at Rare and Beautiful Flocks.
Okay. I
may be wrong. I should have checked that before. And then HOOF is at hoof.nc. And we're also on Instagram too. And then of course our web pages. So greenlandsfarm.org and then HOOF, HOOFNC for North Carolina.org.
Gotcha. Okay. Now you still have the farm stand on site, right?
Yeah. Yep. I run that in the winter time on Saturdays, and then in the spring to early fall, Friday and Saturday. And it's self-serve. I unfortunately don't have time to hang out up there. I do plan on it. I'm going to do, because we're getting back into cheese again. So I'm trying to get my farmstead certification, so we can sell soft cheeses. But I am going to do I might do it once a month, maybe in the spring or so, for wine and cheese at the farm stand.
Okay.
Tastings. Yeah. So something kind of fun and simple and make me sit down for a minute and talk with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's open. Help yourself.
Gotcha.
And please pay me.
Yeah. Now with the payment, do you have that set up with like to take credit cards, or do you okay. So you have like a kiosk to be able to put in their orders, or how does that work?
So it's either cash or you can do Venmo or PayPal.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. All right. Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah. That's the simpler way to do it. We've got a pretty extensive kiosk buddy that runs through Square, so they can actually put all their items in and stuff like that. Oh yeah. It gets, I have
a handwritten receipt. Well, it's a form, and then they just fill it out and say what they got.
Gotcha.
So it helps me track what we sold.
Oh, okay. So the little slip of paper they fill out. Okay, that's very nice. Interesting. I bet our older people would really appreciate that. So maybe we'll start offering that, because all the older people get really upset when we tell them to use the kiosk. They say, "I don't do computers." You know how they get.
I also have QR codes, so you can actually put those up too. So if they have their mobile, all they have to do is put their camera on it, and then it pops it up for them.
Gotcha. Oh, that's nice for the Venmo and the PayPal. Okay. PayPal. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I think that's wow. I think we covered a lot here. What else do you want to leave with people? Anything else you want to leave people with?
Well, I'll say that this lifestyle is very rewarding. It is something that we all, I don't know if it's because we're plant people or, my parents have always been into nature and I've always loved animals, but it's a wonderful life to live. And it's also a very hard life to live. It's not, every day is something different, and not something different in a good way sometimes. But, I feel like we are better as a family for it. We are, very close-knit family. I mean, I live with my parents, including, and my husband. I agreed to live with my parents for 7 years. And we never had any problems, it was just us working together as a team. And I love that my kids get to be a part of that. So, and, it's a pretty good life to live.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the big reasons we went back to farming, because obviously we had an education company. We still do, but we started the farm because I was tired of sitting in my office at 40 hours a week, working on things and writing things. I'm still in my office more than I like, but it's always part of the day where I'm like, all right, kids, put the boots and jackets on. Let's go out and harvest something or, wrangle something or fix something.
Wrangles.
So,
Yes, the wrangling's the fun part.
Yes. So, well, Maud, it has been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And if folks want to, they can go to Farm.Org, check out the website and all that you have going on there. I mean, the farm is beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely a beautiful location with the pond and all that. So
designed by landscape architects.
Well, yeah, it better be good, right? So
that's why it looks like it does. It's not a typical farm.
Yes. Yeah. But then also check out the flocks too, because I think, hatching eggs is something that, it is something that, there's demand for, and people need to look at, and especially with some of these older breeds, which are not being, preserved as well as they would like to. So, being able to make sure that those are getting preserved is important as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Hey, thriving farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.